Welcome to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we love talking about Wolf River Conservancy. We're honored to be joined by their executive director, Keith Cole. How are you doing?
Jeremy, I'm doing great. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be with you and a pleasure to be on your show. Thank you very much for having us today.
Absolutely. Well, you all do tremendous good. And when you talk about conservation, education, enjoying the outdoors, there's so much to unpack. But let's start with a little bit of history. Give us some history for Wolf River Conservancy.
Sure. Our organization, which we are a 501c3, was founded in 1985. And the reason we were founded was the urban wolf, the downtown portion of the Wolf River from downtown to Germantown, was declared a dead river. And so a lot of folks got together and really pondered, how can we bring the health back to the river? And over a number of years, what came about was to create a 501c3, the Wolf River Conservancy. The Memphis Board of Realtors raised the first $10,000 to create the Wolf River Conservancy. And you don't have to think very long and hard. If you're trying to sell homes in the city of Memphis, you don't need a dead river. So we were formed as a volunteer organization in 1985 to be a land trust, to protect land, because people frequently will ask, how do you protect the water? Well, the way we approach it as an accredited land trust is by protecting the land. And I'm pleased to date, we've protected about 19,000 acres, Jeremy, and in today's dollar value, that's about $30 million that our board has invested in protecting land to protect water in the Wolf River watershed.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to unpack there for sure. And so talk about a land trust, because I think what's really cool about what you do is you've got the ability to go out and purchase land to protect it, but also to work with landowners. And so you can do a lot of things very creatively, really geared around protecting the land.
That's right. That's right. And again, I really want to emphasize what I'm so proud about, the history of the Wolf River Conservancy. Again, 1985, volunteer organization. We've now grown into a nationally accredited land trust under the Land Trust Alliance. Only 1 out of 4 land trusts in the United States have reached this certification. And so we operate at the highest standards as we approach protecting land. And as you mentioned, you may have landowners that want to put their property into a conservation value. It may be driven by sentimental reasons. It may be driven by conservation reasons, but we work with landowners to do that, and that protects that property in its current state. But we also buy land, and we frequently will buy land, and we work with the state of Tennessee, whether it's the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency or the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. So frequently we partner with them, we buy land. We're fortunate to live in the state of Tennessee that values protecting critically important conservation lands. So we can do all that. We have a strategic conservation plan that our board adopted in 2015. It's scientifically based on protecting lands in the Wolf River watershed to protect our water and wildlife.
And let's dive in deeper on the water and the wildlife. One of the big things for water is our Memphis Sands Aquifer here in Memphis, which is globally renowned for the quality of water. But with that comes the importance of protecting it. And so talk about the role, the valuable and critical role that you play in protecting our Memphis Sands Aquifer.
Right. You know, Memphis Light, Gas, and Water estimates that under Shelby County today, at current usage, there's about 500 years worth of water that we sit on top of. So we're very fortunate, Jeremy, where we live. Our issue with water is not quantity. Our issue is protecting the quality. And so the work that we do, much of it is in Fayette County. So if I had a map, I would show you how large the landmass is of the Wolf River watershed, as well as the aquifer system that sits underneath us. And that so much of the land that we protect and we focus on is in Fayette County. And these are wetlands and floodplains. But protecting lands in Fayette County helps protect our water in Memphis and Shelby County. So that's the abstract thought we're always trying to get people to think about, is that bigger picture of the work that we do to protect our water.
Absolutely. And all that plays a role into your education efforts. And when you talk about even the activities, it's getting people to enjoy everything, but it's also to better understand how it's all tied together. And so let's start with education. Talk about your work in education and working with youth, especially.
Sure. Yeah, we invest majority of our educational activities with young people, first grade to eighth or ninth grade, a lot of field trips. We have a director of education, Kathy Justice, who is passionate, does great work. We once inventoried how many schools and organizations we'd worked with, Jeremy. It was over 80. Public schools, private schools, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. Much of it is very basic, really teaching young people the importance of conservation on their own local level, which really can start at, not being a litter bug, not disposing of recyclables in the appropriate way, but also getting outside. When a young person gets outside and enjoys nature, they can then have an appreciation of why you need to protect it. But we work 12 months out of the year, again, doing this kind of effort. All you have to do if you're a school teacher or an organization is go to our website, wolfriver.org. You can do an inquiry and we'll certainly respond back. But teaching young people the importance of education goes back to our founding. We have we call them three shuns: conservation, education, and recreation, as you just mentioned.
And so let's talk about recreation, because that ties in when you talk about things like kayaking and being able to get out and enjoy it on the river, but also too, walking around and just being immersed in nature. Talk about the recreation side.
Sure. Well, again, recreation, going back to our foundation in 1985, that Memphis Board of Realtors I mentioned, they raised $10,000 to create what would become the Wolf River Conservancy. And the way they did that, they hosted a number of paddle trips, canoe trips down different sections of the river. So paddling is kind of part of our DNA. And today we have a volunteer river guide program. We have about 25 to 30 volunteers that take people down different sections of the river 12 months out of the year. And we do it safely and securely. Again, if you want to know more about our paddle trips, if you go to wolfriver.org, our activity calendar, we post those trips. We take people down different sections of the river. It may be the urban Wolf, it may be the Ghost River section. Again, we take people down different sections of the river throughout the year. So recreation is another part of our education. Again, getting people outside, enjoying the great outdoors, helps them have an appreciation of why we need to preserve what we have.
You mentioned the Ghost River, and obviously that's become a famous piece of the equation with Ghost River Brewery, but talk about the Ghost River.
Sure. A lot of people may not be aware, but really one of the most significant land conservation projects of the Wolf River Conservancy happened in 1995. There was about 4,000 acres that's part of the Wolf River Wildlife Management Area today that surrounds what we call the Ghost River section. It is part of the Wolf, but we call it the Ghost River section. That 4,000 acres was for sale. It would have been developed. It would have been, all the trees would have been cut down. There'd been rocks and sand and gravel mined out of that section. But the folks that created the Wolf River Conservancy led the effort, along with the community of Memphis, to raise $4.5 million to protect those lands, that 4,000 acres. And that land today is still protected. Why that's important, Jeremy, so many people really don't understand the concept of land conservation. What does that really mean? Frequently, I'll say, have you paddled the Ghost River section? And more often than not, people will say, yes, I have. Well, I say, if there had not been efforts to conserve that land, it would not be there today. So it kind of puts it in perspective. But the Ghost River section is in a beautiful section of the Wolf River, located in Fayette County. It's one of our most popular trips. It's a pretty much all-day paddle trip, but we have a lot of fun with that, and people are always really enamored with what they see that's so close to Memphis. It's such a beautiful area.
Is there a trivia question that goes along with, like, why is the Ghost River named the Ghost River?
Well, there's several stories of that, Jeremy. One is, the most practical is that it kind of meanders, and they think that maybe ghosts are in there. The other is that yeah, there may be ghosts in there, and there are people that got lost in the past, pioneers that maybe didn't come back. But a lot of people have fun with that. We actually, part of what we do is our outreach, our volunteer river guides mark the river. We have blue markers where we mark the river. Again, we do our own paddle trips, but other people go out there on their own. But we keep the river clear or clean of debris as well as logs. And we periodically mark it so people can travel safely.
When you talk about the conservation, obviously all that ties into education, recreation, just like we're talking about. It teaches everyone the power, the importance, the critical importance of conservation. But touch on, one thing that you wish everyone knew around the conservation efforts. I mean, I think protecting the land, like we talked about earlier, that's a critical piece of this. But what's something else that you really want everyone to know around the conservation side?
I wish everybody could have a chance to view and understand our strategic conservation plan, how it is scientifically based, how our board is so focused on the next 30 years, continuing to protect land, and how that is an important part. We hear a lot about the threats to our water in Memphis and Shelby County, and those threats are real. But the efforts that we make, we'll go out and buy a piece of land, 300 acres, invest $400,000 to $500,000. That doesn't make headlines. It's not sexy. It's not glamorous. But it's the work that we do to help protect land. So I would want your listeners and your followers to understand the work that the Wolf River Conservancy does. A lot of people connect us to the Wolf River Greenway, which of course we are leading that effort. And that goes back to our conservation founding, in that part of the way to bring back the health of the urban wolf was to build a greenway and linear park on each side of the river. So that goes back to our conservation values as well.
Well, and I think touching on the conservation too, the other piece of that equation is the wildlife, the ecosystem. You're preserving that. So all the diversity, the biodiversity, all the animals, that's their home. You are conserving that as well, which to me is once again a really important piece of this. Touch on the Greenway, because that'll lead us into this next thing that we're going to talk about.
Okay.
So talk about the Greenway then.
Right. The Wolf River Greenway. Today it's a public-private partnership with the City of Memphis Parks Division, Shelby County, and the Wolf River Conservancy. And so we have 14 miles open today. The full length is 26 miles. And so between the city, the county, and the Conservancy, we're building each separate segments that will ultimately all connect. So today you have Harbortown, you have in Raleigh, you have in East Memphis. Those segments are open. We estimated last year, Jeremy, over 300,000 visitors visited different sections of the Greenway in a 12-month period. Bikers and hikers enjoy it tremendously. But also, to your point, as we build this Greenway through the city, if you look at Harbortown and Eppingway, those are two segments. And I'll emphasize Harbortown. Those areas before we built the Greenway, those were illegal dumping sites. And we did a lot of restoration work, conservation work to create what would be described as a park-like setting that the public can use. But the Greenway today, we're very pleased to share with your audience, we've raised $61.5 million toward building this project. That is money directly going in building of the construction. It's not the Wolf River Conservancy money. Most of our money comes from our donors, whether they're corporate and individuals. But the Greenway is one way for people to connect in our city, to get out, enjoy the great outdoors, and we're happy to be part of that process. So it goes back to our founding as well, the Wolf River Greenway Trail.
So part of this is you have a number of upcoming events that all go together. So it's all connected. Discover the Greenway. So talk about all these upcoming events.
Sure, absolutely. Discover the Greenway. Many organizations learned from COVID, and we did as well. Prior to Discover the Greenway, we used to do a one-day event called Cycle the Greenway. And we'd have about 200 people get together and cycle the Greenway. It was a fundraiser. And this is a fundraiser as well. But what we learned was we pivoted and created an event that was a week long, and people could go out in different on their own and kind of stay safe. Well, we're kind of continuing to evolve the Discover the Greenway in that this year's June 3rd through June 10th. different activities on the Greenway. It actually culminates on Saturday, June 10th with a 5K run. We're partnering with our good friends Start to Finish to make sure that run is done safely and securely. And it will be out at the Humphreys Boulevard trailhead. And it'll be going over our new bridge over the Wolf River out east. So we're looking forward to that. But there's a variety of activities, paddling trips, nature walks. We're going to have goat yoga. Goat yoga, everybody's been hearing about. We're going to have goat yoga down in Harbortown in the afternoon and the evening. Just a variety of things. All this can be found on wolfriver.org on our calendar. There's a tab for Discover the Greenway. You can find it that way. Again, it is a fundraiser. It's a $30 charge to participate in any and all of those activities. So it's a good value, a good way to show your support for the Wolf River Conservancy and get out and enjoy the great outdoors.
Talk about enjoying the Greenway year-round, other ways to plug in, obviously volunteerism, financial contribution. So when you look at year-round opportunities to get involved, touch on a few of those.
Sure. You know, a lot of corporations in the city of Memphis and schools for that matter are looking for opportunities for team building, service projects. Frequently, we may engage a corporation and their staff and go out to a certain section and do some conservation and restoration work, whether it's litter pickup, whether it's planting trees. Last year we planted 6,000 trees through the help of volunteers. And so that's one way you can enjoy the Greenway is doing that kind of work. You know, tying back to that, we have a very robust nest box program. Some people call it bird boxes. I was actually on the Greenway this weekend out east and saw a number of indigo buntings. I don't know if you've ever seen the indigo bunting. It's a beautiful blue bird. And so this 14 miles that we have open today, I can't tell you the number of bird boxes we have through the city, but those bird boxes are contributing to the natural habitat for those animals to live. So whether it's birds, whether it's raccoons, whether it's deer, there's a number of animals. As we build this Greenway through the city, it creates a Greenway belt, a protected belt for them to travel as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think there's so many ways that you can get plugged in. You can enjoy everything that we're talking about. And so wrap it up with where we go to learn more. You mentioned it before, mention it again, website, social media. Where do we go to start getting involved?
Absolutely. Wolfriver.org is always a good first go-to place. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. We're always posting information. Part of the Discover the Greenway is for people to take selfies of themselves on different parts of the Greenway. We'll post those on our social media networks. So there's just a lot of ways to get plugged in. Again, you can always go to our website, to our calendar. Another learning we had, Jeremy, from COVID is our educational lectures are virtual. And we'll have as many as 300 people dial in for our lectures, and we've tracked 13 different states that have gone in and learned the different topics that we're presenting. So again, we're so proud of what we've done since 1985, but most importantly, through COVID and all the challenges that represented, how our organization has continued to grow and to learn and continue to deliver on our mission to the public.
Absolutely. The website again, wolfriver.org, easy place to learn more and to get involved. Keith Cole, thank you for all you and your amazing team do. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeremy. We appreciate it.